Former president and anti-apartheid icon Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was honored by the United Nations with the launch of the Nelson Mandela Sustainable Development Goals quote booklet. This booklet aligns Mandela's powerful quotes with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which were adopted by the United Nations way back in 2015. I've got with me in studio the Nelson Mandela from the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Gushwell Brooks. He's head of the Nelson Mandela Day project at the foundation. Gushwell, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to everyone watching.
Yeah, you are partnered with the UN for this book. Why this book?
Well, I mean, for the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs as we refer to them colloquially, really are aimed at the notion of creating a world that's more equal from a political, economic, and environmental perspective. And I think that ties in beautifully with the legacy of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, what it is that we want to achieve, by, of course, extending on the legacy of Madiba.
The purpose, what would this book assist with?
The key thing is, what I find absolutely fascinating is that Madiba started speaking about these concepts and these notions within the Sustainable Development Goals before we even had the notion or the concept of SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. And I think it speaks volumes to Madiba's commitment to social justice and to a better world. But I think the more important thing is that apart from taking those particular quotes by Madiba and linking it back to the 17 SDGs, is also practical means by which all of us, and I mean the whole of society, can go about achieving those particular sustainable development goals. And we need to take cognizance of the fact that we're only 7 years away from when we need to achieve.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's not far away. So you've got I like the cover of the book. I mean, it's very colorful. Just read. I mean, you've got 17 sustainable goals. Just open it for viewers. Just choose one of those sustainable goals and what it stands for, what it is, and a quote that by Madiba that links to that.
I think for me the most important one is the first SDG: no poverty in all its forms everywhere. And they're very simple quote from Madiba: like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural. It is man-made and can be overcome. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice.
So you went through the SDGs and then you went to find in Madiba's speeches at different platforms in the past, and which one would be more appropriate? Was it an easy task?
No, it was. And hats off to our archives department and, of course, the United Nations. Raja Saleh, the head of archives, was intricately involved in this, because I think the one thing that we shouldn't also lose sight of is that there's many quotes attributed to Madiba that's not actually his quotes. So it was up to our archives team to actually go back and look at those particular quotations. Number one, look at the relevance, and number two, was it actually Madiba that spoke those particular words? So we can guarantee that all of the quotes listed in here are 100%.
Yeah, there's one
authentic
quote, I can't remember now, I don't know, I'm sure it should be there, about education. Because one of the SDGs is around the delivery of education. And Madiba was very, very passionate about making sure that young people got educated. You launched this book today in partnership with the United Nations.
Indeed.
And what's next now? Besides talking to us in the media, creating awareness, what are your plans around socializing this book and spreading the word around SDGs?
I think first and foremost, this book is freely available in an online version. So I think we must all recognize, for free, and we must all recognize the fact that it's more sustainable for people to get access to this particular book through electronic means as opposed to...
So we haven't printed many copies.
Exactly, and that is the beauty of it. But apart from that, the other thing that stands out for me as well, so I mean, for people that are looking for this, if you simply Google Nelson Mandela quotes SDGs, you will find the link and you'd be able to download it from the United Nations website itself. But I think the more important thing for me is also that this is in the lead up to the SDG Summit, which is going to be held in New York a week from now. By the United Nations in the lead up to the General Assembly.
So this book will also be exhibited there?
Indeed. In fact, it was shared with the broader United Nations community. But apart from that, civil society, members of civil society, government, business, everyone was at the launch today. And I think the key thing there is that this book, as well as the SDGs, is really to galvanize everyone to start moving towards those particular goals set out.
Yeah, are you hoping, you said earlier, we're 7 years to go to 2030. That's the goal for the SDGs. It's not a long time, you know, and the world is still in a very tough place. I mean, poverty in our country, inequality everywhere in the world, so many challenges. Are you hoping this book would assist the drive for more commitment or urgent commitment towards achieving these goals before 2030?
Most definitely. I think for the one thing that stands out for me, apart from the beautiful quotes linked to the SDGs, is the fact that you have practical means that you and I as ordinary people would be able to implement to make sure that we achieve those particular goals. But apart from that, I think it also gives people an opportunity to ask questions of business, civil society, government, and all these other structures that we have within societies to say, but hang on, what are we doing in these last 7 remaining years towards those SDGs and ensuring that we achieve them? And as I said, for me, those SDGs and for the Nelson Mandela Foundation, ultimately the Sustainable Development Goals really speak to social justice in the type of world that was the vision of Madiba.
And it's great to hear that at next week's summit in the US about the SDG summit, this book will also feature and hopefully inspire relevant conversation around pushing towards the achievement of the goals by 2030.
That's the purpose, yes.
So besides this book, in terms of the SDGs, what is the foundation doing? You are head of Mandela Day projects, for example. I'm sure some of the activities, they very briefly are linked towards the eradication of poverty, for example, dealing with inequality.
Definitely. In fact, people had a glimpse of this book on Mandela Day, on the 18th of July this year in Diepsloot, where the Nelson Mandela Foundation, along with many other partners, were busy capacitating a community garden, a beautiful community garden, just on the outskirts of Diepsloot. And the basis of it is to protect and to galvanize communities to work towards food security, combating global climate change. And it might sound like far off, you know, concepts, but I mean, here we are sitting, Mr. Moyani, in what's supposed to be September, which is supposed to be...
Look at the weather, eh?
Yeah,
and
spring.
ask the people of KwaZulu-Natal what happened in April last year.
Exactly. And, I mean, you know, the Northern Hemisphere is just coming out of severe heat wave
fires.
as well. And fires and everything else of the sort. So definitely global climate change is having an immediate impact. The point is that through these means, this is how, on a long-term and sustainable manner, we deal with poverty and inequality. Okay,
just remind our viewers before you go, and I hope you could show them, even the cover of the book is very beautiful. Where can they access the book, and how would you hope them to use it to galvanize the achievement of SDGs?
As I said, it's you can simply download it online. I think the easiest way to do it is Google is our friend after all. If you simply look for Nelson Mandela SDG quotes, it will direct you to the link and you'd be able to find it. Download the book for free, as I mentioned.
Thank you very much, Gushwell Brooks. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in. Gushwell Brooks is the head of Mandela Day at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, talking to us about today's launch of this book on Nelson Mandela quotes linked to the SDGs, which has been done in partnership with the United Nations. Next week in America, there'll be a summit about the SDGs, and this book will feature. You can download it for free yourself. Just look for it on Google, Nelson Mandela Quotes SDGs, and voila, you'll have it there, just to inspire you to do your bit in helping us to achieve the SDGs by 2030.